Okay, so wait, let me get my ninja outfit on.
Oh, he's in costume.
Okay,
There you go.
Actually, never mind. Yes. So actually, the reason why I wanted to tackle this topic because I've growing up I've always been a huge fan of the martial arts martial art movies. What do you call? I can remember actually my very first exposure to that was a black and white Japanese series called Shintaro. And growing up, and especially after the after Enter the Dragon came, and there was an explosion of like all sorts of martial arts movies out there, movies like in the 80s and 90s and stuff. And I was so into it, but recently I was watching this documentary where basically they were going like they were talking about the whole explosion of martial arts. Yeah, it's like an explosion of martial art, not just the martial arts movies, but after that you got a lot of like dojos popping up, schools on different styles of fighting, these different styles of martial arts, and a lot of self-proclaimed masters. Apparently, that the movie made it so good that people. I mean, for the longest time, there were, people were like going like, "Okay, the stuff that we're seeing in movies, I got to learn that stuff. I got to learn because I want to defend myself and all." And it's just recently where people are basically debunking a lot of the stuff that you're seeing in the movies. Not just that. Even with styles itself, with the styles itself, the weaknesses, what works, what does not work in a street situation. I mean, you get into a street situation where adrenaline's pumping. I don't know whatever technique you've ever learned, but you're gonna when the adrenaline starts pumping, you're gonna forget about it. You're just gonna get pretty much just gonna get into a fist fight, and it's just all hell. Mm-hmm. And there have been a couple of movies, not a couple of movies, but a couple of YouTube videos out there where basically you got these whole self-proclaimed masters that they've actually gotten to the delusion that watching the movies and stuff, and they got into this delusion that they actually can learn, and not only learn, become masters at this art. You even got some people who can knock other people out with just the chi, and they don't even know what the true definition of what a chi is. They just basically just use your chi, and then someone attacks you. They just stand there, do nothing, and then the person drops to the floor.
Yeah, I've seen videos of that where they have these self-proclaimed masters.
Yeah. And a lot of people are now getting they're getting smarter about this stuff, and they're going like, okay, let's test out the theories. Let's test out what they're saying. And there's even one guy who goes around, and this guy is not a professional fighter, but he goes around and challenges these masters, and he beat the crap out of like there's one video where there's this Tai Chi master that just like stands there in the middle of the room doing this, and the guy just comes at him with all he got and just knocks him out within like the first round. And I was going like, well, you know what is it? What is it about, what is it about movies that the fight scenes, where basically choreography versus technique. I mewith choreography, it's nice to look at. It's like watching people like get involved with like a kind of like a dance and stuff like that, and it's so pretty to watch. But you give it in a real situation, it's never going to work. Then you got like movies that are a little bit, case in point is like Kenny's favorite martial artist, Tony Jaa, like Ong Bak. I saw that. I was just blown away because I've never seen that kind of a style before.
Muay Thai?
I've never even heard of Muay Thai before I saw that. Well, Van Damme, yeah, kickboxer, but that wasn't.
So Tony Jaa is he started as a stuntman. He's from Thailand. Muay Thai is, of course, a Thai martial art. And but what they did for like Onbach, right, is they just incorporated a lot of Muay Thai moves into the choreography. But it's really cool. I'm glad you brought this topic up because it's really interesting. If you like when they actually do show like behind the scenes interviews and things like that of how they develop the fight scenes, and they almost all of them tell you that it's like a dance, like you said. But it's almost every really good fight choreographer, they tell you that you have to treat it like a dance.
Exactly. Yeah.
Because that's the only way that you can get the moves synchronized so that on screen you're seeing phenomenal action, but really what you're doing is watching two people dance.
Hence the title choreography. That's literally what it is. That's not how fights are in real life. It's
yes.
But no, I love that you said that as well, because one of my recent favorite martial arts fighting troops is the guys behind the Raid Redemption. Have you ever seen that?
No.
Well, first of all, it's probably one of the most savage, and again, they're stuntmen. It's a fighting troupe. They're not actors, but they can kind of act. And you'd recognize two of them in the third John Wick. When he was in the big glass area, and it's two guys
kind of fighting through the hallway there.
Yeah, and they were like, he's getting kind of old. Yeah, but it's still John Wick. Those two guys are from this amazing fighting troupe, and you can look them up on YouTube, and they're the real deal. I mean, they train by just getting kicked to the abdomen. It's just a ridiculous.
Look at Jackie Chan's stunt team, right?
Well, his and again, they're like, and I'm sorry, let me put it this way: these guys are because I think there is a slight difference between. Or there's maybe all three. There's a stunt group that, because jumping from one building to another is not martial arts. That's stunt work. And, but also being an actual degree fighter, a ranked fighter is another thing. And then there's, the cinematic choreography fighter. So, but I'm sure, but then you get the combination of all three. And that's when it's insane because they do their own stunts. They know the moves, but also they're doing it with intent. But
so, go ahead.
No, I was gonna say what we should do quick is just say what are our favorite. What's the one favorite martial arts?
I would say this. I would say, in your opinion, the best choreography and the worst. I can start off with it. I can just tell you right now. Of course, Ong Bak, Born Identity is more like the in between one where yes, there's technique and there's not much of there's technique and choreography, but because of technique, it looks realistic, but it's not as pretty to look at as say an Ong Bak. But I would definitely say that the worst, Kylo Ren and Rey fight scene in the sword fight scene in the Force, not the Force Awakens. Sorry, the what was the last movie?
Skywalker.
Yeah, that
on the
scene
ship in the water.
Yeah, they're fighting on the water. On the fighting.
If you're gonna go for the worst fight in Star Wars, I'd have to say it's Episode 4, Alec Guinness and whoever was playing Darth Vader.
That was pretty.
That was literally just two old guys.
I can give you a better, worse one, and that's the fight between Count Dooku and Anakin in Attack of the Clones, because literally you don't see them. You don't see either one really like fighting, you just see a red light pass in front of like Count, Dooku's face, and the same thing, like you don't really see them fighting.
Yeah, that's actually that's part of the reason why I think he what do you call this? Anakin cut some kind of a cable or something, and the lights went out. So yeah,
it turned into a rave concert. That's
basically yes.
What I was going to say a minute ago is, instead of best and worst, I was going to say, what is the movie or show that got you into martial arts movies and shows? Because I like the best and worst choreography. Like, I know that there are some, but that sits just so far in the back of my mind, like, that I just let it go. But the things that stick to my mind are the things that got me into like martial art movies. So I'll say there was a show in the 80s when I was a kid that involves one of my favorite martial artists, I guess, / stuntman, Ernie Reyes Jr. And it's called Sidekicks. And it was basically it was this little, 8-year-old kid who was like a black belt, and whatever. And he was like a sidekick to this like detective or a cop or something like that. And he would like go with this officer and fight bad guys as like this 8-year-old, martial art master. And that is what got me like into like martial arts in general, and martial arts shows and movies, because from that, let's see, after that I saw The Last Dragon, right?
Oh yeah,
Bruce Leroy and sure enough, come on,
yes,
that is a fantastic movie. But then I actually started following like Ernie Reyes Jr. career. He actually he appeared as like a extra or something in The Last Dragon before he did his Sidekick show. Then his next major thing was in Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, where he was, if you remember, there was a pizza delivery guy.
Yeah, that was.
That ends up, they stuff him in, the turtles stuff him into a dumpster because they didn't want him interfering. But he was actually a pretty decent fighter. And then he was in The Rundown with The Rock and Sean William Scott. He was one of the freedom fighters in the jungle. But yeah, like that was what got me into martial arts and things in general was Ernie Reyes Jr.
All right.
Until I discovered Tony Jaa.
So. Now, Logan, what was yours following Kenny's?
Either best and worst choreography or what got you into it?
So I think combination of best choreography and I guess what got me into it is probably going to be a little bit more street. Not to say that's going to be Rocky. It was boxing, which, was still kind of, I guess, my first introduction to some extent to, competitive fighting, if you will. Like I hadn't necessarily understood that concept. My cousin introduced it to me when I was probably way too young for it. He was, I think, 8 years. He's 8 years older, I think. So he showed that to me a lot sooner, and I know he was always a big fan of it. But especially, I think it wasn't Rocky 1. It must have been Rocky 2 at the time when I saw first, or that particular the second fight between Rocky and Apollo Creed, and then kind of watching how that progressed. Obviously, Rocky 4, and speaking of things to watch, Stallone's director's cut of Rocky 4 comes out in November, which I'm very, very excited to see how he recut. New scenes, new angles, whole new take on the movie apparently, and I'm very, very excited for that. He did some exceptional things kind of behind the camera with when he was I think it was with Creed, as well as some of the choices that he made for Rocky VI or Rocky Balboa. That one in particular, I think, still has some of the greatest fight scene ever. The most realistic fight scene maybe ever in a sports, action fighting movie, because, he literally took the people who would film an actual fight and had them film the movie. And those last 30 minutes when, it's the showdown there at the end of Rocky VI, it just looks like a pay-per-view fight. It's absolutely astonishing. But yeah, I'd say that was probably the one that got me into it the most, and probably that I still remember and like the best. Yeah. I'm having trouble kind of thinking of worst, to be honest.
Well, just to refresh, remember, you and I saw Creed together, right?
Creed 2.
Creed 2, yeah.
Yes.
Now, in Creed 2 I remember they shot one fight scene where in the first round and a half, it was a single take.
Cut. Single take. It was
single take.
Gorgeous.
You talk about having
You got exhausted with him as it was going. It was amazing.
Exactly.
The Daredevil hallway scene from season 1. Like that was another one.
Which we all know is a ripoff of Old Boy.
Hey, it worked.
It did.
That was a great scene.
Yeah. But yeah, it's a good point with Creed 2.
My favorite fight scene in any movie. Are you ready?
Mm-hmm.
Nope. Don't say Downton Abbey.
Kung Fu Panda. Away from Poe. Because, that would make me fight. If someone's trying to keep a dumpling away, that's what would make me fight.
That is fighting. That's them's fighting action. Jack Black.
Good.
And Jack Black was also in Mars Attacks.
Kung Fu Panda. I mean, that's martial arts right there.
Or a nice nice restaurant. Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Literally, I think the only martial arts movie I've seen is Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon. So if we go with that one, I mean, the fight scene where they're in the trees, that's
exceptional too.
That's
a great one.
What is it? Wushu? I forget the martial arts style, but it's
Wushu.
Thank you.
The Wushu.
Wushu, yeah.
Which is what Jet Li studied.
Yeah, well, yeah, and what's funny is up until that point, Chow Yun-fat had never done martial arts. Could not throw a kick. He was, if you look at his earlier film, he's a gunman. He was like,
what was that movie again? Oh, dang, I forgot the movie. The monk.
Oh, Bulletproof Monk.
Bulletproof Monk. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, Chow Yun-fat. He is. I'm looking right now at his videography, and he was in The Replacement Killers, Dragon Ball Evolution. Dragon Ball Evolution.
Oh, don't get me started on that.
Yes, again, So, but what's funny is he was in all these films.
I think that's actually worse. She said, "Did you hear her?"
No.
She said, "Is that the Wild Wild West of martial arts movies?" And I'm like, I had to think for a second. And I'm like, no,
it's the Wild Wild West of live action anime movies.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Tell you what, I'm gonna stop mentioning Tony Todd if you stop mentioning Wild Wild West.
Is that a deal? I'm surprised you said that and not Downton Abbey.
And just
Downton Abbey, I can mention that anytime.
To go off the rails for a second, when Logan was just talking about anime adaptations, I did see a new trailer that is out for Cowboy Bebop.
Yes.
Not a trailer, but it was like somebody did a live reenactment of the classic Cowboy Bebop intro. And has anybody else seen that?
I think I have.
Yeah. I mean, it's if anybody's familiar with the series, they have this really jazzy, intro with, silhouette animation. They recut the whole thing with live action actors, and it looks pretty good. So
sorry about that.
Oh, no worries. You got here comes the mic.
Here's the best fight scene.
I think I broke my mic.
Oh. stunt work is hard. It is hard. I'll give you my quick one. I'm sorry, Logan. So no. So I like those. Let me give you my quick two. The one of the first films that really just I saw the savagery and the mechanics of boxing, not so much technical, but just the visceral feeling, was Raging Bull. And because up until then you just hit somebody and they go down and maybe they have a little abrasion on there. But this was the first time I saw arterial spray hitting people in the front row. Yeah. It was like a Gallagher show. It was awful. And again, Robert De Niro, what can he do? And the physical transformation. So it was that whole thing. And some of the worst fighting choreography. And I'm gonna pull something out of my pocket that I probably mentioned on one of our earlier shows. I saw we did at the Alamo, we did a watch party that was hosted by Patton Oswalt. It was a double feature. The first one was a blaxploitation film that came out in 1974 called The Mothers, with a U, Mothers. And it was god awful. And it was shot total guerrilla style in the Philippines. They were basically pirates that were these soul sisters, afros and tied up midriff tied shirts and the worst dialogue you've ever heard. But they were kung fu masters in, I guess, Hollywood standards. And they were doing the fighting choreography where you're 3 feet away from somebody and you throw a kick and then they go flying. And they don't even do the camera angle right. So you see the distance between them. And it's air fighting. It's if you Google, but don't, because the language is a little rough. But the fighting scene was it was like watching toddlers fight. It was insane.
Like, hang on, was it like those? I don't want to call them Bollywood. Is it Bollywood type movies?
No. Bollywood at least has some good action scenes. Or effects. Again, this was done back in the like I said, the early 70s. So and there was no production. I mean, literally, you could go there with a Super 8 camera and just film. Tell people that are just hanging around, hey, we're going to shoot a fight scene. No choreography. Just, pretend you're fighting. And there's an outtake from, not even an outtake, but there's a scene in a Batman, The Dark Knight Rises, where they're fighting on the rooftop. And there's like a melee scene with Batman and Catwoman and just like these like a dozen goons. And they show, you can see there's one guy who literally just loses his place in the choreography and he's like doing this and he just falls down. Nobody even is near him and he just falls down. Yeah, that's the type of choreography I'm talking about. It's literally just it's like a Civil War reenactment. People are just dropping.
Well, that's always one of my issues with big fight scenes in general. Is anytime you have like a whole gang of people and then you have one person and they're all circled around this one person and
I guess
you literally see them like fighting one or two at a time and the others are just standing back there like, all right.
Yeah. Well, you got to go in order. You can't all go at once.
And as much like I love Jet Li, and I like a lot of the movies he's in, but I can't remember. There's a movie with him and DMX and Tom Arnold.
Oh yeah. It was the one where basically they had like the black diamonds that
Cradle to the Grave. There's a scene where they just end up in this like underground MMA club, and Jet Li gets like thrown into the ring, and he ends up having to fight all these MMA fighters, and literally like you're like, these guys should be like brutal, and they're like standing back waiting for him to kick the other guy's butt, and it's like no. And I was gonna add, the things, the kind of fight scenes I do like are what Ramon brought up earlier with like the Bourne movies. So the way that they designed a lot of the fight scenes were purposefully not to be pretty. It was meant to highlight the kind of rawness of what fighting feels like in real life. And when you're in those situations, like in like Bourne Identity, when I think it's Bourne Identity, there's a scene where he's fighting in a house and he literally rolls up a newspaper or a magazine or something and is using that to fight with. And that is something you would do. Like if you had nothing else and you needed a weapon, like you're going to grab whatever you can, but it's also that the action it's very close. They're very close together.
They're fighting in a bathroom at one point.
Yeah.
Yeah, and, I mean it's a frenetic pace.
But the fighting style that they based all the movements in for like the Bourne movies was Cali.
Yeah, martial arts.
Yep.
Filipino martial arts.
Filipino martial art. Yep. And it fits very well, and I tend to like those kinds of fight scenes that they're not completely based in reality, but they're close enough.
Yeah.
That they, that as long as it feels good and raw and realistic, that's what I enjoy.
Yeah. Basically, you have the technique, but you also have the messy stuff. I mean, it's not completely neat and completely neat and clean as a lot of the other fight scenes you see.
But I'll also say, at the same time, I really like the Jackie Chan cheesiness into like fight scenes, like what's
Rush Hour.
like Rush Hour. But there's actually a really funny one.
Rumble in the Bronx.
Is it Rumble in the Bronx where they're kicking? No, they're on there's this one where they're on a rooftop. And he's fighting these two guys, and they're literally like they're kicking their shins together for
Super Cop.
Super Cop. Is it Super Cop?
Well, yeah.
I mean, and then he starts.
They end up like kind of like swinging past each other, and then they're like rubbing their shins, and that's like the other end of my spectrum. Like I will always watch those kinds of movies.
Yeah, Jackie Chan definitely credited Buster Keaton and Charlie Chaplin for a lot of his choreography. He said, when he tried to make an angry face and look like a leading man tough guy, it didn't work.
Yep.
So he went with the more comedic role of fighting with a little bit of shtick, sprinkled in there. No, good.
Yeah.
Good.
Speaking of my favorite Jackie Chan movie, you actually can't find anywhere. Like I can't find it digitally. It's called Who Am I?
I remember that. Yeah.
So it's where he loses his memory. He ends up like falling from like a parachute or something and loses memory. Forgets that he's like a special forces soldier. But I can't find it like streaming or I guess I might be able to find it on DVD. I guess
YouTube.
Pirate Bay.
Yeah.
Well, Hollywood fight scenes. You gotta love them.
Yes.
And again, like I said, go check out The Raid Redemption. That has some of the whole fighting troop. And that fighting troop is also in the Force Awakens. They played the guys that were boarding Han Solo when he was on the freighter.
Oh, that's right.
And he's like, you can't trust those little guys. And they had no martial arts in this whatsoever because they were eaten by whatever
that monster tentacle thingy.
Yeah, but two of the guys were in it, and again, so anyway, excellent stuff. Thank you, Ramon.